How one tank stopped an entire army summer, 1941. The German army is racing eastward. Every day brings new victories. Tank columns advance dozens of miles. Soviet defenses are collapsing. To many German commanders, it seems that nothing can stop the Wehrmacht. Then something unbelievable happens. An entire German battle group suddenly comes to a halt, not because of airstrikes, not because of artillery, not because of a major Soviet counteroffensive. The reason is a single tank, one tank against an entire army. It sounds like a legend, but it really happened, and as the story unfolded, it became even more unbelievable. Because at first, the Germans didn't even understand what they were facing, and by the time they did, it was already too late. To understand how extraordinary this event was, we need to go back to June 1941. Operation Barbarossa had begun only days earlier. German forces were advancing rapidly through Soviet territory. Many officers believed the war would be over within months. The first days of the campaign only strengthened that belief. Soviet units were retreating, communications were breaking down, defensive lines were collapsing. It seemed as if the road to Moscow was already open. But near the Lithuanian town of Rasinii, something unexpected happened. The German 6th Panzer Division was moving forward according to plan. That was when scouts reported the presence of heavy Soviet tanks in the area. At first, nobody paid much attention. German troops had already encountered Soviet armor. Most of it had not posed a serious threat. This time was different. Hidden among the forests and roads was a Soviet KV-1 heavy tank. For many German soldiers, it was a completely unfamiliar machine. They had no idea how dangerous it would become. Soon, the tank took up a position overlooking a critical supply route. At first glance, it seemed like a minor obstacle, but that road was essential to the German advance. Ammunition moved through it. Fuel moved through it. Reinforcements moved through it. Food and supplies moved through it. If the road was blocked, the offensive would slow down. And that is exactly what happened. As the first German convoy approached, a shot rang out. The lead truck exploded, then another, then another. Within minutes, the road was blocked. German commanders initially assumed they were facing a large Soviet force, but reconnaissance soon delivered astonishing news. There was only one tank. Just one. At first, many officers laughed. One tank could not stop a division. At least, that was what they believed. They were about to learn otherwise. Anti-tank guns were quickly sent forward. German crews took up firing positions. The guns opened fire. Several rounds struck the tank directly. But something unexpected happened. The tank didn't stop. It didn't burn. It didn't retreat. Instead, it kept firing. The German soldiers could hardly believe what they were seeing. Normally, a few direct hits were enough to destroy a tank, but this machine seemed almost indestructible. The reason was simple. The KV-1 possessed armor unlike anything most German units had encountered before. Weapons that easily destroyed other tanks had little effect on it. Soon, the Soviet tank returned fire and destroyed the German anti-tank battery. Now the situation was becoming serious. German commanders began to worry. The advance was slowing, supply lines were disrupted, and the mysterious tank remained on the road. The Germans decided to bring in heavier artillery. Large guns were moved into position. This time, they expected the problem to be solved quickly. The bombardment began. Explosions shook the ground. Smoke covered the battlefield. It seemed impossible that anything could survive such punishment. But when the smoke cleared, the impossible happened. The KV-1 was still there. Even worse for the Germans, it opened fire again. The artillery crews were stunned. With every passing hour, the situation became more absurd. A single tank continued to block one of the most important roads in the area. An entire battle group was effectively being held hostage by one armored vehicle. But the most dramatic chapter was still ahead. The Germans decided to deploy their famous 88mm anti-aircraft gun. This weapon had already earned a reputation as one of the deadliest tank killers of the war. If anything could destroy the KV-1, surely it would be the 88. Under cover of darkness, the gun crew carefully moved into position. The plan seemed perfect. But somehow, the Soviet crew spotted the movement. Before the 88 could fire effectively, the KV-1 struck first. Several shells slammed into the position. The gun was destroyed. The crew was wiped out. At that moment, the situation crossed from frustrating into terrifying. Reports sent to higher command sounded almost unbelievable. One tank continued holding the road. One tank kept destroying everything sent against it. One tank was disrupting the plans of an entire division. By now, stories about the tank had spread among German troops. Some believed there had to be multiple tanks. Others assumed a large Soviet force was hiding nearby. Many simply refused to believe the reconnaissance reports, because the truth sounded impossible. Yet the tank remained there, hour after hour, day after day. But inside the KV-1, conditions were becoming desperate. Ammunition was running low, fuel was nearly exhausted, the crew was completely surrounded. No reinforcements were coming, no rescue was possible, and still they fought on. That is what makes this story so remarkable. The men inside the tank understood their situation. They knew their chances of survival were almost zero, yet they continued fighting anyway. Eventually, German commanders developed a new plan. During the night, combat engineers would crawl close to the tank. They would place explosives near its tracks. If they could not destroy it, they could at least immobilize it. The mission was incredibly dangerous, but it partially succeeded. The explosion damaged the tracks. The KV-1 could no longer move. Yet even then, the battle was not over. The immobilized tank continued firing. Its guns still controlled the road. Its crew still refused to surrender. Only after many more hours of combat did German forces finally manage to approach at close range. Heavy weapons opened fire from nearly point-blank distance. One hit followed another. Finally, the gun fell silent. The battle was over. As German soldiers cautiously approached the tank, they expected to find nothing more than a destroyed vehicle. Instead, they found something else, a symbol of extraordinary resistance. A handful of men inside a steel machine had delayed an entire German battle group for nearly a full day. They destroyed equipment. They disrupted supply lines. They forced German commanders to waste valuable time and resources. And perhaps most importantly, they delivered a warning. The war in the East would not be an easy victory. Today, historians still debate some details of the battle, but one fact remains undeniable. In the summer of 1941, a single Soviet KV-1 tank managed to halt the advance of vastly superior forces. History is not always shaped by massive armies. It is not always shaped by generals or politicians. Sometimes history is shaped by a few determined people inside a steel machine. That is why, more than 80 years later, the Battle of Raseiniai remains one of the most incredible stories of the Second World War. The story of how one tank stopped an entire army